La Muxia, my hostel or albergue, is right down between that yellow building and the white building. Beyond that metal sculpture that you see, rusted metal sculpture on the patio here, they're apparently drying something that they get from the sea. They dry it on the patio and then sweep it all up after it's become completely desiccated, I guess. So this is what part of the little town looks like. And behind me, I believe somewhere, or down that way or somewhere, is a monastery you get up onto and for sunrise, sunset views and so forth. They pants around here. It's a rugged coastline here, but apparently much of the first 2 or 3 hours of tomorrow's hike will be getting up on top of those hills there and away from the coast. I don't know what she's getting, but she's diligently sorting through all of that to come up with whatever is in here that's of value. It's inscrutable to me at this point. So you'd think with this kind of signage I shouldn't get lost, not to mention the fact that in theory, all I got to do is stay to my right after I leave on my right from the hostel, and I'll stay along the coast until I hit this plaza right here. So it's a quiet little place, at least today. It should be busy. It's Sunday. But it's a pretty little spot. Lovely breeze blowing. Apparently up there is a magnificent view, and around there to the right is the farthest most point, I believe. But it really wasn't the end of the world. On everything, and inevitably there's something worth going to the top of the tallest place for. You know, we're approaching the front of the monastery, I think, and there's a statue of somebody standing up on top of the rock. There's going up, but there may be an easier route up to the top. Having done my share of humping it for today, need to search out the easier route if I can. This will take us up to the top. So I'll pan from the town of Muxia. I came in along the seashore there, or along the bay shore. At some point after having come over that ridge line, and just about back behind that ridge line in that bay is where I actually came down off the mountains to the east. And down below is that church I thought was the monastery, but I'm not sure that it really is. Notice how the EU money went for a lot of wind power. Again, I wonder what a percentage of their energy usage did it reflect as an increase, and as to what they hope to see as a percentage in the future. Now we're looking pretty much probably to the north, maybe northwest, and there I think is probably the monastery. Now we're just looking out to sea. And at the coastline, most of this I will bypass by traveling on a path that will take me up and over through there, and then down along the coast to Finisterre. Finisterre was thought to be at the time the end of the world. It wasn't. This seems to be a town aspiring to be a tourist destination town, but not yet having achieved it. What these people do for a living, I don't know. And maybe someday, 10, 15, 20 years from now, this coastline that we're looking at, particularly nearby, will all be covered by big, huge high-rises. You can see the past, the stone walls of the paddocks. Fishing boat arriving after a day's work. Somewhere down there, I think near Finisterre, John Adams landed in his attempt to reach Paris and convince the French to support the states against Great Britain in the Revolutionary War. I don't know what the huge split rock is supposed to represent. The legend here is that the Virgin Mary came ashore in a fisherman's rowboat to wish Sir James success in conquering the Moors. This may be one of the only two times that that symbol points down the other, down at Finisterre. This may represent the schism between the Moors, or the Muslims, and Catholics and Christianity. How many farmers and their wives stood in those paddocks and watched the sun go down and the sun come up, or just contemplated listening to the waves? Did this, and does it still represent a division of property ownership? Maybe among several families, because this was such an ideal location for some reason, for some crop. You can see how that building has moved in front of, taken command of the view from, properties behind it. I wonder what the original purpose of the placement of those rocks were. Perhaps for a flower shelf. Looks like there was a window. My goal was to get over the top of that big mountain ridge, if you will, before the sun came up, and I've done that. Just came over the top a moment ago. The sun has a little while before it gets up, and we're looking pretty much obviously to the east, and there to the south are some of the villages that I will probably pass through later this morning en route to Finisterre. And we probably have another hour and a half of walking in the mountains before we get to see the ocean again. Again, a pastoral scene. But in the background over there, beyond those trees and that ridge, I can hear the roar of the ocean. And imagine the number of people at a time when they could drink the water coming out of that little fountain there, would stop here and pray. So here's where we started in Muxia, and we're now moving down the coast, and we're right there now, so you can see that over there is the ocean ways. Where we're ultimately going is to the bottom of the page, to Finisterre. One of the curiosities of the trail here, particularly in Frixe, is you'll run across these signs for a city, or a town rather, and you never even see the town. I guess the concept still works. Again, over the top of those trees, you can hear the ocean roaring. Next little town that we probably won't see. Okay, so I guess we do get to pass through a little town. I think we should call them townlets. Oh, but look there's 2, 3 houses, and perhaps more around the corner. And again, less than 50 yards away, Baosilveiro, another town. That may be that house up there. These are the cabbages we've seen throughout northern Spain, but I've yet to figure out where the cabbage part is, the part you eat. We're used to a head of cabbage, and I don't see any head. Is one yet to grow here? I don't know. The stalks sometimes get almost twice the size, but they look the same, no head. Here an owner has harvested the the inheritance of timber, all neatly cut. Presumably it sits here until the wholesaler, whoever buys it, decides to come and pick it up. You can imagine that these 3 big piles represent a considerable investment for the owner, and no doubt soon they will begin to convert what they just cut down into a newly planted forest. And in this pile you'll notice something a little bit different than the other 2, and that is the small slash timber, what we'd call slash in the United States, that would just be thrown into big piles to either be burned or disintegrate on its own.